It makes me think of Gaza as this place that was designed to always kill you.
So Gaza is my hometown. It's where I was born. I also grew up in Egypt. And now it's been 9 years. I live in France where I study and work. And I'm still, well, deeply connected to my birthplace, to my family who's still there, my friends, my neighbors. And as I witness their genocide from here, from Europe.
The bombing of a refugee camp in Rafah, southern Gaza, on the 27th of May sparked a global outcry. Thousands of Indonesians flocked to the US Embassy in Jakarta to protest the American support of Israel. During this protest, Mahmoud, a Palestinian living in Indonesia for the past 12 years, watched the protests on the sidelines.
So there is no safe area in Gaza. So what's happening now, it's natural reaction from the people. What we see today, alhamdulillah, always a lot of people coming to support Palestine in whole of Indonesia. This is what always we thank them, because if they not support Indonesia, so the issue will die.
Since the attack, an AI-generated image bearing the words "All Eyes on Rafah" has been shared by tens of millions worldwide. Rowan Katba, a Palestinian from Gaza City, currently residing in Lyon, France, had conflicting feelings of a generated image going viral, saying,
Also, why is it this one particular fake image that is being shared over 40 million times? What does it mean to have all eyes on Rafah when you share an AI image that isn't even of Rafah? So it's your eyes are not on Rafah. Actually, you're just being reminded of this, like acknowledging this situation while completely also dismissing it. It doesn't really teach anyone anything about what happened, especially if someone who hasn't seen the real footage or doesn't know what happened that day in the humanitarian areas of Rafah, then that person hasn't really concluded or understood anything from that message, actually.
Rowan, with her mother and sister, left through the Rafah crossing 1 year into the 2006 Israeli siege of Gaza. She provided the Jakarta-Post with her personal photographs from her visit to Palestine in August 2022. This is her story.
I think I understood colonialism before I even learned the word, before I heard it, before I used it, before I even learned how to speak, probably. Because in Gaza, what's often forgotten now is what happened before the siege. Like what was happening in Gaza beyond 2008 and 2005. It was the fact that we're living with the settlers on the outskirts of Gaza. So what that meant was a heavy military presence, obviously, in Gaza, a lot of checkpoints between each government and city, a lot of separation walls that sort of separated roads, for like a road for settler and a road for Palestinians, that would always close the road so all the Israeli cars would pass, and then we would have to wait for them and then pass the checkpoint. Also the watchtowers, there was a lot of watchtowers everywhere. I grew up in a place where I knew there was the other that is trying to occupy me, because it was also very material. It wasn't an idea. It's like I saw them, and my house was just on the outskirt of a settler colony, so I could actually see it from my own room, like the room of my childhood. So this was something I'm reminded of when I wake up, when I look out my window, when I go to sleep, and I would see the soldiers. So I already felt this presence that was so close to me, but that was also trying to swallow me whole, kind of to eat me up and occupy my land, and I feel it getting closer every day, building up more housing and bringing in more settlers. And also from just word in the street, I heard it. My father and mom always tried to explain it to me in the simplest of ways. And you just feel it, you sense it, you feel like you're being watched by cameras, by soldiers. You see weapons always being pointed at you. You understand that you can't just go from another city to the other freely on your own time, but You have to like struggle through, sit through a checkpoint and wait for 3 hours for what could have been actually 20 minutes, you know. But there's also the daily violence of house demolitions, of shooting Palestinians, a lot of murder and a lot of like night raids that I also went through in my house. Like there was like a week where every night there was a night raid, or they were always looking for some guy. There was always clashes with the resistance, and the resistance was also very, very active even at the time. And it only, like, it just grew exponentially since. So whenever an operation by the resistance happened, or whenever there was like invasions or attacks, we would know that the Israeli occupation army was going to enforce a curfew, whether a daily curfew that lasted for a couple of days or weeks, or just a night curfew, just at nighttime. So these were times of preparation for the curfews, where I'd see my mom immediately go on emergency mode. She would start stocking a lot of food, but mostly a lot of canned food. Like, we're probably gonna be inside for a long time, and we never knew, you know. And these were like very, very scary nights, like, you know, the silence and the darkness, the lack of electricity outside. But I do remember the darkness. I think it also helped them see whenever there were like moving cars or any flashlights or anything. So at these times, it was, the rules were stay out of the windows, don't light anything up, don't go on rooftops, like just pretend you don't exist, you know, so you don't just get shot because you stuck your head out of the window. And there were incidents where that happened. There was also a lot of drones, you know, like the drones buzzing, and the big planes drones, like, yeah, not the little small yeah, the big ones that make a lot of noise, and you would always hear it in your sky. We hear it right now whenever you're watching a video in Gaza. Right. Maybe you've heard it. There's always a zzz in the sky. So that was always present. It's like a part of our conscience. It also made them feel more in control. Even like before like the siege officially 2007, there was bombings, and there was like many types of psychological torture, I would say. There was a specific time where I remember what we called sound bombs, because they weren't real. They would make you feel like an explosion happened, but it was like this intense air pressure thing that released like intense sound, and it kind of like, you know, it echoed everywhere in the city, and the pressure would be so high that it could also shatter windows or doors if they were closed. So I remember a time where we wouldn't, like, they started using this, and I think the first time they used it, we, like, you know, you have your doors closed, your window closed, so that caused a lot of mess and a lot of injuries, obviously, because if you have a door flying at your window, you could die. Yeah, so it could cause a lot of injuries. It wasn't like, oh, just sound, and it caused a lot of injuries. And so with time, when we knew that they're starting to use this, we would always like leave a crack in the window open, doors a bit open, like no one even close their shop completely in case at night, or they would just stay at the shop. So that was there was a lot of psychological torture there. So yeah, I think this part of what Gaza has always been, the violence of Gaza, is really forgotten. We only speak about it at the point of the siege and Hamas taking over power. But I'm not going to say it was worse, it just was very different. Because what's happening right now is also beyond imaginable. There was always a problem with Gaza. And then the reason they leave Gaza in 2005 was because it became impossible for them to actually to survive there as settlers. There was just a lot of resistance, and you're trying to kick out the original inhabitants of the city, where we outnumber them, but they are more powerful than us. So there was no way out. Anyways, they couldn't have taken us all down. They couldn't have forced us to go away. They couldn't have demolished all the houses. So I mean, who wants to live a life like that as well?
So you saw them leave, right?
Yeah, like I remember the day. Well, I don't know what happened on their side. What I know now is that a lot of them were forced to leave by the government. The military had to like really force them out. But what I knew was at the time was that the settlers are gonna go away. Like that's happening. But that also meant that the military is gonna go away. So for me, the settlers were still an idea. I've never really interacted with one even in the street. Like we are so separate. We live in different realities. But what I saw every day was the military, the guns, the checkpoints, the watchtowers and the walls. So all of that also was gone, like just overnight, just gone. Like you could finally just cruise on the sea and not be stopped by a checkpoint or be threatened by a gun. And people would just drive from like north to south all day. And that was it, like because we can. After the time the settlers left, it's not like it was obviously happiness and rainbows all the time, because shortly after we realized that wherever there were farms or empty lands, they had planted a lot of landmines. I don't know if it was the settlers, the neighborhoods, the military. And how do you realize there's a landmine when obviously an accident happened and somebody dies? And I think this was a problem for a lot of children because they would just go out and play in fields. They wouldn't pay attention. So a lot of children were injured or murdered that way. And for the longest time, it was just off limits for kids to go play like further from like just the front yard. Like my mom would tell me to not go far away. We would put like how do we say, like just warning signs everywhere. People started putting them everywhere so that we're reminded. So I remember this also became a part of our subconscious, like there are landmines, just don't go walking anywhere until there was the time for them to be found and removed. And I think with time, like there wasn't any anymore. Yeah, this makes me think of Gaza now, like after the years, and when I look back at it, it makes me think of Gaza as this place that was designed to always kill you at each corner, like whether from land, sea, sky, everywhere. Just the guns, the checkpoints, everything was ready to murder you. Yeah.